So let's talk about building a personal brand because everyone wants to, whether they want to admit it or not, they want to build a personal brand. So give the listeners some insight on where they should start.
Yeah. So I think this idea of building a personal brand can be daunting a lot of times for people of like, if you're not used to putting your face out there on camera, if you're not used to putting out content in general, you don't come from that world, or maybe you see everyone doing it, but you're still just afraid to. I think this idea of building a personal brand should be just rethought about in terms of, we all have our not only our identity, but this authentic version of ourselves that you bring into every conversation, your reputation, right? And this idea and how I define personal branding, especially from a social media perspective, which we're here talking about today, which is representing the most authentic version of yourself in a digital format. And I think this idea of building a personal brand and sort of the blueprint that you can follow, again, it's all different. There's so many creative ways that people are putting out content, but for me, and over the years, I've just become so aligned with, which is, this idea of having a podcast. For me, it gives me this foundation of being able to create so much content, interview people, have conversations, create long form content, to then create so many short form clips to then distribute amongst social media, in which the way I do. And I think just if you want to get started building a personal brand, like find your medium, which is like, what is the first thing that you want to start? Is it just creating short form content and creating it in terms of sitting down, recording a video, maybe doing editing, maybe not, and putting it out there? Or is it something like, we're doing right now, or what I do in my podcast, which is I'm able to just create long form content and then take that and just disperse it in micro moments.
Yeah.
But it's building a personal brand is also much more than just short form content at scale, right? It's like, what is your mission? What are you known for? Like, what are you building, right? Like this idea, and I've always thought about this in a different light over the years, is because when I was starting my personal brand, I was 17 or 16, I just turned 16. I had no businesses, I had no experience, I had no successes. So this idea of like when I started to build my personal brand, I was just building it off of like, let me do book reviews and like this is my personality, this is my story, the most important thing, which is like, what is your foundational story that people can buy into, that people can understand, that people can more so fall in love with in their own context. And once you, because I think a lot of people too, like we all have our own stories, but if you were to throw anyone on a podcast that has no real clue what a podcast is, and you just, have them on, they're talking about their story, you'll quickly learn like the story that they tell themselves, the story that they tell
Yep.
themselves about their life, those moments that changed you, the growing experiences, like what you do today and what led to that. Like they'll answer all these questions that I think a lot of people don't ask themselves when they think about their life. You're so caught up in the day to day, you're so caught up in what's next in your family, business, like job, whatever it may be, and that's okay, and that's just life. But when thinking about building a personal brand, ask yourself like, how can I capture, especially from like the foundational level, how can I capture my story and the story that I tell myself, the story that I believe is true, in which my journey, how can I showcase that in a foundational way on social media? Like, let me just sit down and record myself telling my story to get clear on even the story that I tell myself and the story that I want to put out into the world. And I think once you understand that, you can start to ask yourself, like, okay, what niche do I want to talk about? Is this purely, obviously, from a business perspective? You may have this crazy story, but in the current form of yourself, you might be a realtor. So it's like building a personal brand about being a realtor. Like you need to do things in a creative way to hopefully drive you business and talk about real estate and bring value to an audience. Like, how do you do that? And I think it starts by just even seeking what other people are doing in the space, right? Like, you want to start a podcast, go watch and follow the top 5, 10 podcasters or the people that you believe are doing a great job and model them in your own right, in your own way. And I think if you do that, which is understand your story, get clear on the niche or focus of, how you want to be known, and then use model others in your own format, it's a great just foundational way to think about personal branding. But again, I think the most important thing is just don't overthink it.